When the world makes a decision about a person, it asks one question: how hard is it to reach them? Not how good-hearted you are, not how hard you work, not how many people you've helped or how many sacrifices you've made. The world looks at the cost of access. The first time you hear this, something inside you resists. "But I'm a good person," you say. "But my intentions are pure." Machiavelli heard that objection and gave this answer: people don't measure your inner world. They measure the cost they see from the outside. Who gets called to the meeting first? Who finds out at the last minute? Who gets kept waiting and who never waits? Who gets asked for concessions and who never does? Whose absence creates a crisis and whose absence nobody even notices? None of this is coincidence. These are the unwritten but ironclad rules of the social economy. So here's the real question: where do you stand in this game? The vast majority of people go through their entire life without understanding the difference between being liked and being valued, and they lose because of it. Being liked is easy. You go along with things, you show understanding, you never make anyone uncomfortable. You show up to every event, you reply to every message instantly, you never keep anyone waiting. People enjoy your company, they like you, but that affection doesn't make you expensive. Being valued is different. Value begins where others hesitate before reaching out to you. It begins where the answer to, "Can I reach this person right now?" isn't always yes. In 2026, this reality has gotten harsher. Competition increased, attention decreased. Everyone is trying to be visible at the same time. Constantly share, constantly talk, constantly be available. But the result is the exact opposite of what they expected. The ones who put themselves out there the most get consumed the fastest. Because the perception of abundance destroys value. The human mind protects what is rare. It spends what is plentiful. This isn't a character flaw. It's a biological reflex. What everyone can have is special to no one, and people don't pay a price for things that aren't special. Try this thought experiment. Think of the most powerful person you know, your boss, someone you admire, someone you look up to as a role model. Now ask yourself, can you reach that person whenever you want? Do they pick up right away? Do they reply to messages within minutes? Do they show up to every invitation? Most likely, no. Now think of the person who respects you the least. When can they reach you? The relationship between access and respect is no coincidence. A person who's available every moment creates no threat with their absence. Their absence isn't even noticed. And what goes unnoticed becomes negotiable. The person who becomes negotiable gets cheaper over time. The modern world teaches you the opposite. Respond fast, show interest, don't miss opportunities. But these lessons come with a hidden cost. People learn that your time is unlimited. They learn that keeping you waiting is no big deal. And without realizing it, the balance of the relationship shifts. Responding to every message instantly isn't good intentions. Most of the time, it's cheapening yourself. Because you're sending the other person this signal: I'm here, I'm ready, you don't have to wait. The person who gets waited on rises. The human mind magnifies what it's forced to wait for. This person must be busy. They must have other priorities. Not everyone can reach them. That thought automatically increases respect. There's an important distinction here. Being unreachable and being selective are two different things. Machiavelli doesn't advocate for chaos. He never advocates for lack of discipline. The issue isn't disorder, it's access control. managing consciously when, to whom, and how much you open yourself. The person who can't control their time can't control their value. The more a person explains, the lower their position. That sentence sounds harsh, but once you hear it, you start seeing it everywhere. Someone who goes on and on about why they were late, who explains at length why they couldn't respond, who justifies why they acted a certain way. That person is unknowingly announcing, I can be held accountable, I can be questioned, I can be cornered. The moment you explain yourself, you hand the other person the authority to evaluate you. Is that reason good enough? Does it make sense? Is it acceptable? Once those questions start getting asked, you're no longer on equal footing. Over-explaining is usually done with good intentions, to avoid being misunderstood, to prevent tension. But good intentions are a weak defense. Because the other person doesn't see your good intentions, they see your opening. The more detail you provide, the more branches you create for them to grab onto. The expensive person doesn't explain. Because what's expensive doesn't need justification. Nobody tries to prove why gold is valuable. Value isn't up for debate. It's either accepted or it isn't. The person who speaks little isn't valuable because they are mysterious. They're valuable because they set limits. They've stepped back. They've left space. In that space, the other person is forced to think, and people fill what they don't know with their own fears. When you explain, you eliminate the uncertainty. When uncertainty disappears, tension drops. When tension drops, seriousness fades. When seriousness fades, respect erodes. One of Machiavelli's sharpest observations, power isn't clarifying everything. Power is leaving some things deliberately ambiguous. The person who stays silent sets the price. Money is a result. What comes before it is posture. How a person stands, how they wait, how they say no, and how they're able to walk away, all of this gets read long before money enters the picture. This is all you need to understand. Nobody wants to pay serious money for something pitched in a panic. The person who's in a rush is cheap. The person who can wait is expensive. Someone who constantly discounts, who adapts to every condition, who agrees to work for less. At first glance, they look flexible and hardworking. But on a psychological level, they're sending a different message. I have no limits. You can make me do anything. I can't walk away. According to Machiavelli, the person who can't walk away is powerless, because the person who can't afford to lose can't set a price. So how do people treat someone who's desperate? They feel sorry for them. But pity doesn't generate power. People don't give responsibility to those they pity. Don't delegate authority. Don't put them at the center of critical decisions. Because the pitied person is seen as someone to be protected, not someone expensive. The expensive person doesn't chase money. Money comes to them. Because they haven't broken their posture. They haven't sold their identity. They haven't bent to demand. One critical point. Being expensive isn't arrogance. It isn't coldness. Being expensive means knowing your limits, knowing when to stop, knowing when to say no. According to Machiavelli, power isn't pleasing everyone. Power is being willing to consciously lose some people. The person trying to hold on to everyone holds on to no one. But the person who's selective creates a following. One of the most common misconceptions people have, thinking that getting along with everyone increases your value. Machiavelli says the exact opposite. Someone who's on the same level as everyone doesn't get chosen, they just get reached. And what gets reached quickly loses its value. The person who speaks the same language to everyone, offers the same warmth to everyone, gives the same access to everyone, gets figured out fast. No more surprises, no more distance. They've been mentally consumed. The human mind doesn't invest in what it already knows and is figured out. The social order is naturally hierarchical. Who's close to whom? Who can stand by whose side? Who can enter whose space? These things get tested constantly, consciously or not. The expensive person doesn't leave this game to chance. One of Machiavelli's clearest warnings: excessive closeness erodes authority. The more people get used to you, the more they push your limits. They start joking. They start taking you lightly. They increase their demands because they think they've figured you out. But distance prevents this erosion. When people don't know how close they can get to you, they become cautious. They weigh their words. They watch their behavior because they sense that a wrong move might have consequences. That sense is the foundation of respect. The expensive person doesn't sit at every table, because not every table carries the same meaning. Some tables generate power, some drain energy, some build reputation, some wear it down. The person who accepts every invitation can't make that distinction. And the person who can't make that distinction sends this message: this person needs everyone. This person is afraid of being alone. Someone who acts out of fear never looks powerful. The expensive person isn't emotionless, but they don't put their emotions on stage. The person who constantly talks about how hurt they are, how wounded they feel, how often they're disappointed, earns empathy in the short term but loses respect in the long run. For Machiavelli, emotion is energy that must be managed. Left uncontrolled, it doesn't generate power. Instead, it hands others the ability to steer you. The person who knows what makes you sad also knows where to push you. The person who's emotionally open doesn't realize this. The one across from them has stopped just listening. They're analyzing. They're cataloging weaknesses. They're figuring out when to apply pressure, when you'll back down, when you'll give ground. Every emotion placed on stage gives the audience power, and the side that's watching always has the advantage of control. Someone who constantly shares emotionally eventually creates this perception. This person is unstable. This person is fragile. And fragility generates pity. But pity is temporary. Respect is permanent. In Machiavelli's world, stability is the most expensive thing. The person who stays the same no matter what, who doesn't change under pressure, who doesn't crack under provocation, they automatically inspire trust. And trust converts to economic value. When giving someone a job, delegating authority, entrusting someone with money, people ask, how does this person handle a tough situation? Do they panic? Do they stay calm? The person who can't control their emotions can't pass that test. They become predictable. And a predictable person can be directed. A person who gets directed doesn't stay expensive. The expensive person doesn't hide their emotions. They keep them in the right place. They don't open up to everyone. They don't share with everyone. Because emotions are a resource too. Every resource offered without limit loses its value. When people can't figure you out, they become more careful. They speak more measured. They negotiate more cautiously. For the person who's always emotionally open, none of this is necessary, because everyone already knows where they'll break. And that's weakness at the negotiating table. Most people confuse power with winning, with getting more, holding more, having more. But for Machiavelli, Power is the capacity to let go before the capacity to hold on. The person who's trapped by obligation isn't free. The person who has to earn money, who's afraid of losing a relationship, who tolerates everything just to keep a position, they look like they're sitting at the table, but they're actually standing and waiting. The terms are written against them, not for them. According to Machiavelli, the most dangerous person isn't the one who has nothing to lose. It's the one who has accepted the possibility of loss. This person can't be threatened, can't be manipulated, can't be rushed. At a negotiating table, who's more expensive? The one who doesn't need the money or the one who desperately does? The answer is clear. The power to walk away sends the other person this message. I don't have to be here. I don't have to work with you. I don't need your approval. This message doesn't have to be spoken out loud. It's felt through behavior. The person who can't walk away constantly makes concessions. First small ones, then bigger ones, and eventually themselves. And without realizing it, they get cheaper. Because everyone learns, push a little and they'll back down. Make them wait and they'll agree. Threaten a little and they'll soften. The person who can walk away creates the opposite effect. When pressure is applied, they don't step back. They go quiet. If necessary, they leave the game entirely. This behavior creates a gap in the other person. It creates uncertainty, and uncertainty forces people to be careful. One of Machiavelli's darkest truths: people treat you fairly not because they love you, but because they're wary of you. That wariness doesn't come from fear. It comes from the risk of loss. When losing you becomes a cost, you gain value. Not every gain is worth it. Not every relationship is sustainable. Not every opportunity is actually an opportunity. This awareness protects you from being rushed. The rushed person is cheap, because rushing comes from need, and need is weakness. Machiavelli's most practical lesson: people never forget what they were able to get out of you. What you showed understanding for today becomes the standard expected from you tomorrow. The behavior you tolerated today gets imposed on you tomorrow. The world loves habit, not compassion. Making yourself expensive isn't about giving less. It's about giving to the right places. It's not about being unavailable to everyone. It's about being available to the right people. It's not about being permanently unreachable, but it is about not being accessible every single moment. The gap between those two is razor thin, but the result is dramatic. The easier it is for people to consume you, the less seriously they take you. Your time, your attention, your energy, your patience. And without realizing it, they learn. This person is always here, always understanding, always willing to deal with it. That's exactly the point where value drops. What's free produces no worth in the mind. There's a moment most people never reach. It's not the moment you become more disciplined, not the moment you become more strategic, not even the moment you start saying no more often. It's the moment you stop needing the audience. Most people live their entire lives performing. They perform strength when they feel weak. They perform certainty when they're confused. They perform indifference when they desperately care. And underneath all of it, the same quiet need: be seen, be validated, be enough. The expensive person has passed through that need, not because they stopped caring about people, but because they stopped needing people to confirm their worth. This shift changes everything. When you're not performing, your silence isn't strategic. It's just silence. When you're not performing, your no isn't a power move. It's just a boundary. When you're not performing, your distance isn't calculated, it's just where you naturally stand. And paradoxically, that's when people feel it the most. Because performance can be sensed. People don't always know what they're sensing, but they feel the difference between someone who's managing their image and someone who simply doesn't need to. One creates admiration, the other creates gravity. Gravity pulls people in without trying. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to. Machiavelli understood power as external, how others perceive you, how you position yourself in the game, and that matters. But the deepest form of being expensive isn't about the game at all. It's about the moment you stop playing for the crowd and start moving from something real inside you. That's when no explanation is needed. That's when no justification makes sense. That's when people don't just respect your limits, they respect you. The person who performs being expensive is still cheap at the core. The person who simply is expensive doesn't think about it at all. This piece didn't tell you to work harder. It didn't tell you to be more well-intentioned. It didn't tell you to be tougher, colder, or more selfish. It told you something much harder. Learn to respect yourself. Because the person who doesn't respect themselves has no business expecting respect from others. Reduce your access. Because what everyone can reach loses its exclusivity. Cut back your explanations. Because the person who over-explains becomes accountable. Adjust your distance, because without distance, there's no seriousness. Protect your time, because the person who can't protect their time can't protect their life. Know when to get up and leave, because the person who can't leave the table becomes the table's toy. And know when to stop performing, because the person who performs being valuable is still somewhere underneath it all, begging to be seen. The cheap person over-explains. The expensive person speaks through their posture. The cheap person constantly sells themselves. The expensive person's presence is enough. The cheap person chases every opportunity. The expensive person chooses. The cheap person tolerates everything to avoid losing. The expensive person loses if they have to, but never bends. And Machiavelli's darkest but most honest lesson. People measure you not by how much they love you, but by how much you're able to walk away. The person who can't walk away is weak. The person who can walk away is free. And the free person cannot be controlled. The world consumes the cheap because it knows they can be replaced, but the world protects the expensive because losing them is a risk. The most dangerous person is this, the one who has something to lose but isn't afraid of losing it, because that person holds a kind of power nobody can take away, the power of not being obligated. If this video made you pause, even for just 1 second, that feeling isn't lying to you. There's no motivation on this channel, no applause, just the kind of truths most people don't want to hear, but somewhere deep down already know. I make every video with one single purpose, to bring you one step closer to a stronger version of yourself. If you want to keep walking that road, subscribe, not for me, for the version of yourself you haven't met yet. I'll see you in the next one.